Hi, my name is Jennifer Dixon. Welcome to the Geary County Historical Society. Today our focus is on Pioneer Children's Chores. We'll talk about chores that children did throughout the week and every single day that needed to be done. Now, Pioneer children were the first ones to come to the area in Kansas around 1860, 1870. And this was a time before electricity. So think about ways that you help your parents at home. Do you do the dishes in the dishwasher and you put them up? Do you help with starting laundry sometimes in the washing machine? When your mom or dad comes home from the store, do you help them put the groceries inside the refrigerator? Well, Pioneer children didn't do that because we didn't have those items back then. There was no dishwasher, there was no refrigerator, there was no washing machine, no vacuum cleaner, nothing that could be plugged into a wall. So let's talk about what children did. We'll discuss wash day, ironing day, gardening, and sewing. And we'll talk about animal chores that we do in the morning. We'll also talk about different types of cleaning and baking. So let's start with washing. Normally you would use a washing machine at home. Today, this is our washing machine. It is called a boiler. So it doesn't plug into anything, it's just a really large container. And I would say to you, would you go down to the creek or will you go outside to the pump and can you go get some water? So you would walk outside, down to the creek, and you would gather some water in our bucket. And when we came in, we would pour all of the water inside of our boiler. And then if we wanted to heat our water, remember we don't have a regular oven, so we would use our wood-burning stove. And so the wood would go into the side over here, and it would heat up the top, and this is a heavy metal piece on the stove. And we could take our boiler, put it right here on top of the oven, and get the water nice and hot. And then we would use, guess what, to get our clothes clean? Homemade soap. So here we are. We are going to wash. And here's one of the dresses that we have to wash. Now, if you notice my clothes, I have a long dress on, and I have an apron on. I also have boots on with black socks, and women often wore black leggings, even in the summertime. And we'll talk more about those when we get to sewing. So here's a little girl's dress, and boys would have long pants on with button-up shirts, or they would have overalls. And we're gonna put in our boiler, and we're gonna wash our clothes, take an old stick and swish it around in there to get them nice and clean. Let's say we have a spot that's particularly dirty and it's got mud on it. Well, we're gonna take this. Does anyone know what this is called? It's a washboard. So we'll put our washboard inside of our boiler, and we'll take our muddy spot where we were out making mud pies, and we'll wash out that dirt. Now you wanted to be careful with the washboard because it's a little rough and it can also tear clothes up. And usually you only had a couple of sets of clothes. Maybe only 2 or 3 dresses is all you would have. So we get our dress clean, and then we're gonna hang it up. What we're gonna use is a wire. So we would usually hang this outside on a pole or from tree to tree, and you would hang your dress on it with an old-fashioned clothespin right on the line there, and it would hang outside and just blow in the wind till it was dry. Now there is something else in my boiler that I want to show you and see if you can guess what it is. What is this contraption? If you take a good look at it, most people tell me they think it's a toilet plunger, but it's not a toilet plunger. This is an agitator for washing clothes. So you push it up and down or back and forth to wash the clothes. And obviously, we didn't have toilets and it's too hard to even be a plunger anyway. So that is another one of our guessing games. And I'll have several different little guessing items and games for you to decide what you think the item is. So that was our wash day. The next thing we're going to talk about is ironing. Remember, there was no electricity, so we didn't have regular irons you plug into a wall. We had something called sad irons. And if you could feel this, you'll see it's pretty heavy. So this sad iron it detaches from the top, and how you get this warm is you put it right over here on our wood burning stove, and it heats up. And so that you don't touch the hot part, you attach this to the bottom. You attach the handle to the bottom. Sometimes it doesn't attach easily for me. And then you iron with it. And the good thing is, if your sad iron gets cold, you already have another one on the stove heating for you. And then you attach that one, which won't attach for me today. Also, one cute little thing I have to show you is a little teeny tiny play iron, but it really is metal. So little girls who like to imitate their mothers, let's say that they have a little baby doll dress, and they get their little iron just kind of warm, then they can lay it down and they can learn to start ironing. And this is just the cutest little play iron. All right, before we talk about mending and sewing, I would like to talk about some of the things that Pioneer children would do every single day. They would go out and they would work the farm. Now, remember we talked about kids gathering water and bringing it in to either drink or to wash clothes or to wash dishes. Other things were they would take care of milk cows and the chickens and the horses and any kind of farm animals. They would help care for them. So let's say you have a milk cow at home, and this is how you're going to get milk, how you're going to make other items, and we'll see if you can guess that soon too. If you have a cow that needs to be milked, their udders can become very full and uncomfortable if you don't milk them. So that's one of the things that you need to do. And the way we can do that is, let's take this outside with us. What is this going to do? What do you think this object is? No, it's not a club. It's not anything to hurt anyone. It's a stool. So when you go out to milk your cow, you're going to take your stool and sit on it. And they call it a three-legged stool. Even though there's only one leg here, there's one leg here, 2, 3. So it's a three-legged stool, and you would milk your cow. And let's say we're going to use this bucket and the cow's milk would go in here. So we'll leave this sitting overnight. On all of that milk, there would be a frothy part that would rise to the top, and it's like a cream. And you're going to scoop out the cream, the frothy, thick part, and you're going to leave the milk in there. And you are going to put that cream in this container. Now pretend I have my lid off, and I put my cream down in here. I'm wondering if you can guess what this is, and I'll give you a hint. It turns. Milk can be made into butter. So the more you turn this, the thicker the butter becomes, and you add a little salt, and then you save that butter in something we call a butter mold. And here's my butter mold, and this one's in the shape of a square, but we also have one in the shape of a triangle. So there's different types of butter molds. Another thing that I might do is when I'm doing my chores, I would take my apron, and you can see mine's a little crinkly because I use this one for working. I would go out in the morning and I would gather hens' eggs and bring them into the house. I could gather maybe some herbs and spices from the garden and bring those in. And of course, if my hands got dirty, I'm going to clean my hands on my apron as well. But I'm also going to use this same apron for cooking or baking. But let's talk about mending and sewing. So I have my dresses and the ones that I washed. But let's just say since I only have 2 dresses, I get a big hole in one of them. Or my stockings. I only have 1 pair of stockings and there's a big hole in the heel. So what am I going to do? Well, here's my stocking. And you can see right here, there really is a big hole in the heel. So I'm going to take my sewing kit. And there are 2 objects in here that I wanted to show you. One of them is called a darning bell. The darning bell helps you sew the area that needs attention. This is just a simple plain gourd. You see those around Halloween time or and it's just dried out, but it does the same thing as the darning bell. So we'll use the darning bell so you can see what that looks like. We put it inside of our stocking and run it down to the very end where we have a big hole right in our stocking. See there? You can see the darning bell and you can see the hole. And then we're going to put our clasp over it. Of course, we're very lucky. We have some black fabric so that we can mend this area. And we're going to reuse these many times and probably even pass them down until they become too old and raggedy. And if something becomes too old and raggedy, we'll still reuse it. One way to do that is to reuse it making a rug. So let's just say my apron is just in tatters. I'm going to take my apron and my leftover stocking and any other clothes, and I'm going to make this lovely rug for inside of our home. Now, pioneer homes, when they first got here, they had to build their own home oftentimes, and they weren't as nice as the ones today. Many times, they had a wood floor, or they even had dirt floors sometimes. So they made these rugs, and they would lay them down for them to step on, but they would get very dirty, especially if they were dirt floors. So kids had to clean these, and they would carry them outside of the home, and they would get this clean with this object that looks a little dangerous, but it's really not. And these come in different shapes and sizes also. It's called a rug beater. So we take our rug outside and we beat all of the dirt and the sand and the dust out of our rug with our rug beater. So there's many, many chores so far that children had to do. Now let's talk about gardening and farming. In order for your family to survive, you had to eat. And there weren't any Walmarts or Target stores or a Dillon's grocery store. You had to go to your farm or to your neighbors, and you would get your fruits, and you would grow your vegetables, and you would store them in cans for the winter so that you had enough food then. And if you had meat, you often dried your meat and salted it so it lasted for a long period of time. And people were always, all of the children were always helping with all of the cooking and the preparation. And as we talked about before, the butter making, everybody would help around the house with that. Maybe dad and brother went out and they got an animal to bring back, and there was fresh meat, so that would be cooked as well. So baking and cooking was very important, but that all went along with farming the fields. And you knew how to do that as a very young child. And then so the other things that we have here, we've gone through most of the items, but boys, to help bake, you would often go out and you would cut wood. You'd cut wood for our wood burning stove, and if we had a fireplace in the house, a pot-bellied stove, you would gather the wood and you would cut it. Even young boys, like elementary school age boys, would handle this saw. So maybe a brother on this side and a brother on this side, and you have your wood, and you would have to saw it in half and then chop it into little pieces, bring it inside, and that would be used for our wood burning stove or for our fireplace to keep the house warm. All of these things were done by kids to help out the family. So think about how you can help around your family in today's world, which is very different from the way pioneer children lived. Thank you. Have a good day. My modern day glasses. Start over. Oh, right. Pioneer Children's Chore Traveling Trunk. We've And today we're going to be talking about children's chores that were done by children, because that's what children's chores are. So we're going to start over again. We're going to talk about people who first came to Texas, the pioneers. To Texas? We live in Kansas. I don't even know why I said Texas.